Okay, welcome to Pinimus Parshas Chayei Sara, Tavshin Pei Beis. Just want to mention something that I left out last week.
You were totally unprepared.
Meant to say, and just the theme really, it carries through to this week. The idea is that the Avos HaKadoshim are here to build a world. They're starting from scratch. Adam Harishon brought the world to some level, right? Some level of tikkun, Chet was some sort of korban. He brought some level of tikkun after that. You mentioned that up till Noach, Yared, Chanoch, Misushalach, Noach, they had their own level of tikkun, and then Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov are ultimately bringing the tikkun lemaisa to this world. Okay, this is that Avram Avinu is doing. He's making gerim. Noach and everyone else before that, they did their avodah. They were more in lofty worlds. They connected to Hashem, not Noim Hazeh. Avodah Hashem, Gilui Hashem in this world was not where they were holding. Avram Avinu is lemaisa. Olam Hazeh is ultimate tachlis. It's called boots on the ground. That's Avram. We mentioned that Avram Avinu, due to the fact that he was restarting, so he had to have a kivshon ha'esh, right? He had to be recreated. Right, when you put something into a kivshon, you put it into a kiln. It kashes it out. It remakes it. Right, it makes it as if it was disassembled and put back together. Because it gets it heats it so hot right into the molecules, and and then they reharden afterwards. And that was it. Avram Avinu was like being recreated, right? And he was being kashered, right? Because at the end of the day, he had all sorts of pagamim in him because Chet Adam Rishon. Avram Avinu had to somehow rise above the Chet Adam Rishon. We mentioned that we spoke about that when it came to the bris of Avram Avinu, this was his final tikkun. Once Avram Avinu did the bris, which included in the bris was getting his name changed, they came together. Avram Avinu reaches his final stage of tikkun. And at that point, he's ready to have Yitzchak. Okay, that's Avram Avinu. Sara Yemenu at the same time is also reaching her tikkunim, and she gets her name changed. She has her being the counterparty of Avram Avinu also makes it that she gets her tikkun. But ultimately, the tikkun of Sara is in Yitzchak. Okay, because Yitzchak and Sara al pi Sfarim HaKadoshim, they share the same neshama, and Yitzchak is really Sarah's tikkun. Okay, so Yitzchak has the idea that he has to be also remade to be the perfect man, to be an Adam HaMasukhan, just like Avram needed his tikkun. Right, his tikkun was a kivshon ha'esh. Yitzchak had his tikkun, which would be the Akedah. Okay, ultimately that was his tikkun. Now that Yitzchak has an Akedah, he can go and get married, and he's ready to bring Yaakov into the world. Okay, so Avram has his kivshon ha'esh, and Yitzchak in the Akedah, he has his tikkun, right? He gets remade, because we'll talk about this a little more in detail. That Yitzchak by the Akedah, his neshama left him. He actually spent 2-3 years in Gan Eden, and he came back. He was a new man. Okay, so Yitzchak gets transformed through the Akedah to a point that he's totally remade, a brand new neshama. And that's this week's parsha. Yitzchak ba mi be'er l'chai roi. It says that Yitzchak was coming from be'er l'chai roi when Rivka was brought to him. Where was he? Mentioned Mechem ba. Where is Yitzchak coming from? It says different mandam say different thing, but one mandam says Gan Eden ba. He came from Gan Eden because that's where he went. That's where he disappeared to after that Akedah. Just so Avram Avinu needed a new tikkun, right? It needed to be remade. Remaking Avram Avinu brings him to the madrega of Adam Rishon Kodem Achet. Okay, that's ultimately the goal. The goal is to be Adam Rishon Kodem Achet, which means you live forever, right? And like Adam was meant to live forever, Avram Avinu is working on bringing man to that new madrega, and he was successful, right? Klai Yisrael b'Matan Torah. Again, Avram Avinu is the first stage. Avram is a Yaakov. You go to, and that takes Klai Yisrael to Matan Torah. Matan Torah, right? Klai Yisrael reached madrega. Then a near Matan Kimatem, right? That you are godly like Malachim, and they would have lived forever. Chet Egel undid the tikkun of Adam Rishon's Chet. Okay, undid it, put them back. But obviously Yaakov Be'emes brought Klal Yisrael to that madrig. So I want to be honest about it. Just a very interesting thing here. The question about Adam Rishon had a chet, right? He did a eight from Eitzadas and also in this Churban, right? A person does a chet, Adam does a chet, you do tshuva, you should be able to be masak in the chet. And we know that Adam Rishon did chet, did tshuva. He did tshuva for 130 years, right? Chazal tells us that Adam Rishon it was Yashav b'sak v'tainis, right? That says all the sigufim that he did himself, how he tortured himself, Sara Zarzirim, his body from not taking care of himself, from just fasting and just mourning, his body started like sprouting, all sorts of just push it from the sigufim, the way he tortured himself. So he did a tremendous tshuva for 130 years. So tshuva works. So why did he die? Right? He should have lived forever. Now, the Zohar asks this kasha, and the Zohar says that Abad Yeshua was in the Skabel, and he was always supposed to die at age 1,000. That's what the Zohar says. I saw this once upon a time. I'm not sure if everyone agrees with this, but the Parshas is...
Seems to be conditional. Yeah.
It touches it up. What it means. But the Taka says, this kasha, tshuva works. It had to work. However, the Chef Shmaitza says a very interesting pshat. He says that what is the question? If you did tshuva, then you should live forever. If tshuva works, then you should be back to where you started from, and you should live forever. He says azay. When a person, he brings from the Arizal, a person does an aveira. What happens if a person Hashem does an aveira? He says a part of his neshama leaves him. He loses his chiyas, right? Aveira is misa, right? People think averas are fun. No, averas are misa. They're death. You're giving up your nefesh, your ruach, your neshama. Your ruchnis is being sapped away, right, from chet. What is tshuva? Tshuva is the ability to bring back what you gave up. You sacrificed your neshama for this chet. You do tshuva, you can get your neshama back. You can get your kedusha back. Okay, so tshuva is a process of re-bringing back all the kedusha that seeped away from the Aveira. Dr. Sheshmaitza, who is also the Ketzais HaChoshen, he says that in order for a person to live forever, you have to be created by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yitzir Kadosh HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu can make a human being that will live forever, right? But if a human being makes something, it has to have some sort of tachlis, has to have some sort of end to it, because a human can't make something that is greater than himself. So he says, Adam Rishon, when he did tshuva, right, he made himself. His tshuva, he created himself. He was a Yitzir Adam now. Yitzir Adam can't live forever. Originally, he was Yitzir Kappa Shal Kadosh Baruch Hu, right? So then he could live forever. The tshuva worked; it brought back his neshama, but the nafkamina is he's no longer Yitzir Kappa Shal Kadosh Baruch Hu. He's Yitzir Adam.
What changed that? Then why was he limited?
Because tshuva is you being misakin yourself. Tshuva is you being misakin instead of Hashem. Zok the Chef Shmaitzi b'dam Hakadosh Baruch Hu Hashivenu Hashem Elecha v'Nashuva. Hashem, you should be the koach of our tshuva. Chadish make it kedem. Then, if Hashem inspires our tshuva to the point that it's kilak, Hashem is doing the tshuva for us, then Chadish make it kedem. Then we can go back to kedem achet, and we'll be like Adam Rishon, we'll live forever. And that's as I was thinking by the bris, right? The bris is ultimately Avraham Avinu's tikkun, and the ultimate tikkun of Avraham Avinu by the bris is to get to the ma'ila of Adam Rishon Machet. Ah, beautiful. Right, it says, "Behimoel b'sar alasa." It's like Rashi. Avraham Avinu couldn't do it; he was afraid to do it. Hashem held his hand to help him do it. Why did Hashem make it that way? Avraham Avinu could do everything. He could shach Yitzchak. He can't do a bris, right? What's the answer? The answer is ultimately the bris is his tikkun that is getting to Majeg of Adam Rishon Machet. If he does it all on his own, he's going to be Yitzir Adam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu held his hand with him and did the bris with him. V'charas ima bris, because now that Hashem did the bris with him, so this is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's remake of Avraham Avinu. Okay, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's remake of Avraham Avinu, And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does by that Keda also. Yitzchak needs a remake, okay? And his remake is that his Taka neshama leaves, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends it back a brand new neshama, okay? And his brand new neshama was a neshama that was now ready for the next stage. This new neshama was ready to give birth to Yaakov, okay? So Avram Yitzchak, their tikkun ultimately is to bring Yaakov. Yaakov is Ish Tam, right? Yaakov Ish Tam means he's perfection, right? Because he's be'emes, right? Adam Rishon. Because now that Avram is Mesukin, Yitzchak Mesukin, what the product that comes out of them is totally Mesukin. And that's why Yaakov, he has no pegam in his dairis. Avram has a Yishmael. Yitzchak has an Esav, right? But by the time you get to Yaakov, the perfection comes out. Yaakov's Ishtam, and Yaakov is the Gemara says Shufra to Yaakov is Kain Shufra to Adam Rishon. Yaakov had the beauty of Adam Rishon, right? Because Hitaka was a compilation of the perfection of Avram and Yitzchak. Just the
Is that the Kisaka?
yeah, right. He's top, right? The Medrash the Medrash says that. At the beginning of this week's Parsha, on Sara, Chayei Sara, Mea Shana v'Esrim Shana v'Sheva Shanim, Shnei Chayei Sara. So the Medrash says, Yedei Hashem Yemei Timimim. Right, it describes that Sara had a timimus. Right, the Indian of timimus is describing this complete tikkun that ultimately she came about to. So I was just thinking that timimus is a term that's described, right, of reaching that perfection. The way we're describing it is in order to get mankind or Klal Yisrael, back to the Olam of total tikkun. So the lashon is tmimus. Yitzchak reached this tmimus also, right? Where do you reach tmimus? By that keda. What's Yitzchak called in Chazal? He's called an Oila Tamima, right? That's why he couldn't leave Eretz Yisrael, because he's an Oila Tamima. When did he reach the Madrega of Tamimus? The same exact moment where Sara died, they both reached the Tamimus at the same exact time. Yedei Hashem Yimei Tamimim is that Sara reached her tikkun. That's why she left this world at that point. and Yitzchak at that point became Oila Tamima. And who's Yaakov? Right? Ishtam. Okay, so ultimately Tamimus is the term that's used to describe total shlemus. What does it mean total shlemus? I just saw this from the Iminayim, just a remez to Tamim. Tamim is gematria 490. Okay, he says like this: how do you get to Tamim? If ultimately you're being Tamim, that means you connect that Kadosh Baruch Hu fully, right? Tamim means you're fully connected to that Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu is Yud Kei Vav Kei, right? He says if you take the 4 letters of Shem Hashem and you multiply them against each other, meaning you take the Yud, you multiply it by K Vav K.
Hakar? Is that what Hakar is?
You could call it, there are Hakars, so you do different ways. This is you could maybe it's called Hakar. Hakar is when you do multiplication, but this is a 4 times multiplication. You do Yud times K Vav K, right? You do Yud times the remaining letters. Then you do K times the remaining letters Yud K Vav. They do Vav times Yud K K, and they do again K times Yud K Vav. You add that all up, is V'Gematria Tamim, which describes that all facets. When you talk about the Hashem Havaya, you talk about it corresponds to Hashba of the Hashem Havaya really corresponds to HaKadosh Baruch Hu being mashpi in this world. That's what Hashem describes Hashem's hashpa in this world. That he's mehaves hakol, and when you have mehaves hakol b'shleimus, where that is represented b'shleimus, that's meaning all the letters kilu magnify each other. And that would be a gematria for Tamim. Let's talk about just an interesting thing I saw in the Galamuk. It's a little bit it's really b'derech pshat. He says that yes, there's a kash in just a Parshas Pshat. We'll introduce for next week's parsha. Vayigdu al Na'arim, right? Vayigdu al Na'arim, they became bar mitzvah, right? That's the type. Vayigdu al Na'arim, right? They became bar mitzvah. he says, as I write, it means to become bar mitzvah. That we learn from here, right? From this pasuk, there is a right. The Medrash says, "Vayigdal narm ois hayom nasu bnei yud gimel shanim." Shtei Medrash, v'asavim bar mitzvah. Okay, Yitzchak made a bar mitzvah for a double bar mitzvah for Yaakov and Esav. Right, and Mikan Lam Dolaima Brachata Hashem Shepatran Man Shoseh. Okay, the Medrash brings down the bracha Shepataran they make by mitzvah. He goes into the whole question: do you make with Shem Machas? You don't make with Shem Machas. He says he feels you should make like the Shem Machas, which is the meaning of Gra. He preceded the Gra by 150 years, but he says that if Vayigdol Hanarim, right? So the pasuk says on that day, right, that that Avram Avinu died, and that's when Yigdal Narm and Avram Avinu died, and they were having Avelus, and Yaakov was making the Adoshim for the Avelus, and Esav came and sold him the Bechira. So yes, the Kasha.
That was that same day. I thought that was when they were 15.
That's what he is. He says Yigdal Narm they were 13. It says they made a bar mitzvah. The next pasuk is it doesn't say that was 2 years later. It seems to be the same day. Right, Avram Avinu died. So he said, "How you do the math? Right, they were 15. Why that have to be 15? Because Avram Avinu lived to 175. Yitzchak was 60 when he gave birth to them. Avram was 100 when he gave birth to Yitzchak. So 100 plus 60. Avram was 160 when they were born. They were 15 when Avram Avinu died. 175. So what's going on over here? And Bechlal, it's right. It's like." To say that they were taka 15, l'chayra, people start choosing their tzidkas and their rishas already by mitzvah already. L'chayra, 15 is not the magic age where they would start separating. So he says with Parshas they were 13 at the time. So he says al pi pshat, he says based on what we said that Yitzchak bought me ber l'chayra. He spent 2 years in two years and change until in Gan Eden. He says Yitzchak spent 2 years in Gan Eden, so he was actually 62 when he gave birth to them. Those 2 years we never counted them.
Off the record.
It's off the record, right? So Mela, he was really 2 years older, right? So he was 62 when he gave birth to them. So Avram was 162. Mela, when Avram Avinu was 175, the kids the kids Yaakov and Esav were 13, and Mela, they were taka 13 at that time. He says interesting, not an interesting point. It's brought down that the Kimei Hashemaim al haaretz, right? L'man yibu mechav mei v'nechal al adon asher nishbar Hashem la'avosechem l'seis lachem Kimei Hashemaim al haaretz. So the Medrash that says on this pasuk it says that the Avos HaKadoshim they lived 500 years total. Between all of them, right? So if you add it up, 175, 180, and 147 gets it to 502. So he says, so how does the Medrash say they live 500 years? So it says that the Kimei Shemaim al Arts, the Shemaim is 500 years travel above the Arts, and it's Kimei is and that's the Yimei Avosechem, right? Avram Yitzchak Yaakov. Chayei it's 502 years. You add up 147, right? 175 and 180, right? It's 502. He says. Like we just said, Yitzchak spent 2 years in Gan Eden. Those years are not in any of the cheshbonis, but when he died at 180, his taka was 180, right, including those 2 years from Gan Eden. Anyway, that is part of this week's parsha. We should taka be zeicha, to be masakin ourselves, and to recognize that we're taka meant to be tmimim, and not shoot for mediocrity, right? Shoot for tmimis, shoot for perfection, and perfection doesn't happen overnight. And but we should also recognize that even in our failures, there's perfection, because failures allow a person to pick themselves up and find perfection in the way they pick themselves up. They would have never found if they wouldn't have failed. Taka b'zeicha, we should be tmimim, and b'zeicha to the gula shlema.